Yeah, so that was a great introduction. As Amy mentioned, we over at Zuora, just started launching a lot of our programs within the last year. And so Zuora, for those that are not familiar, is a subscription billing software. So we help companies sort of transform their business models from from a one-time revenue model to sort of a recurring subscription usership model. And so the way that we think about the work of Zuora.org is following along that line. We want to help encourage our employees to think about subscription philanthropy. How do they think about really committing to and giving back to organizations over the long term? And then we want to do that with our money, with our impact fund. So we opened up a donor advised fund just at the end of 2018. And so for the last year, we've been making small grants, usually to support different philanthropic work of our employees, as we call them ZEOs. And as Amy mentioned, right now are just starting to make longer term committed grants to organizations through our strategic grants program and also our community impact grants program, which we launched last week. And so we wanted to kind of talk a bit about that and sort of use this as a use case of how things have had to shift in this time. So after we made our sort of initial emergency grants to support organizations that are sort of on the front lines of COVID, we had our community grant program lined up and teed up to go. So this has been in the works for a few months now, but has really shifted in the last couple of weeks as we've gotten this off the ground. So where we are now is we launched last week. We're giving grants of $10,000 to $50,000 to organizations that are working towards creating more equitable communities. And so initially we had wanted to really make this grant cycle strongly aligned with our desire to partner with organizations strengthening educational foundations, also through workforce development, but we've had to sort of broaden that in scope a bit. And for all of the reasons that Alex was just talking about and Amy touched on as well, we want to make sure that this money is allocated to organizations that need to shift with the times right now. And so things are looking a bit different in terms of the grants that we have, that organizations have been applying for. So that also shifts the way that we're selecting those grants. So we have an advising committee of ZEOs, global ZEOs that review all of the incoming, applications. And so they have varying degrees of interaction with nonprofits and also, experience in giving grants. So we now need to take them through sort of a new training around what does the landscape right now look like for many nonprofits? What are the challenges they're facing? How can we really effectively select the applications that are going to be serving the greatest need in our communities? And so we're all sort of shifting and evolving as this happens. And it's been interesting, but I think it's going to allow us to come out a lot stronger. And I say that because we're just starting to create those long-term nonprofit partnerships. And so as Alex just mentioned, we don't have a big portfolio of nonprofit partners right now. And so I think that by opening up this grant cycle and having it, come at this time, it allows us to create those partnerships that are going to be able to sustain over the long term. After this one-time grant cycle, what does the next year look like with this organization, this partnership? How can we think about ongoing grants? How can we think about helping to support with our product and with our employee skill sets, if those things are relevant with the organizations that we're working with? So we're seeing this as a great opportunity, but it's definitely had to sort of shift as the days go by. And I think on the next slide I sort of just touched on those things, but just to sort of reiterate, we really had to open up the application process a bit. One, to make it more widespread in terms of the communities that we're working to support, but also just allow organizations to not only apply for grants for specific programs that they had planned or would like to plan, but just more general operating money to help them sort of wherever they need it the most. So, my hope is that sharing this on the call with you guys is that, spread the news. We'd love to have as many nonprofits as, need funding apply. Alex, I definitely want to connect with you after this call, but, I welcome you guys to share this, and we hope that we can, broaden the scope of the organizations that find this grant cycle and apply for it.